That's nice. Carl, yeah. And as you can see on the screen, this is the feedback for your BMAN 5121 test. I want to start with an apology. I once again have abandoned you as a class. Unfortunately, my knee situation deteriorated and I had to have an operation. I've put Nina and Tulani into the class, both of them well-tenured, well-versed lecturers, and they'll be able to take you through to the end of the semester. But I remain the responsible lecturer. I'll be marking your exam and I'll be giving you these type of feedbacks. We still have to discuss how we're going to approach the exam prep. I might even do a recording on that. Any guess? Okay. So that's the apology out of the way. By now, you should have received back your marks for the test. And I've received back feedback that you are very, very upset about the marks. Not to worry, I am as upset as you are, probably more than you are. So in any case, you should receive back the actual script if you haven't received it yet within the next day or so. This feedback session is only fair that I do it, as I marked them. Tulani didn't mark them, neither did Nina. And I'm going to take you through question by question, giving you the answers, telling you what was asked, how it was asked, and so on. You must understand I can't give you the model answers. I'm not permitted to, but I will here and there read from the memo. I have the memo open next to me to give you a sense of how these assessments work. And then at the end, I'll talk about the way forward. So obviously, and then something to keep in mind, your marks have been released. If you're unhappy, but only be unhappy after you have your script in your hand and you have looked at what I am saying here. You are then welcome to ask for a remark. Also add up your marks. Make sure I added up correctly. Make sure I marked everything. If there is a blank or piece of work that you don't see any ticks in it, but you see a double line at the bottom of it, that means I've read that, but there's no marks there. So that's a 0. Any guess? Okay. So let's get into it. So the first was a multiple choice question. I'm not sure if the exams are going to have a multiple choice, and there's no sense in me going through the multiple choice individually. They're going to choose, if they ask you a multiple choice, I'm not sure they will in the exam, but if they do, they're going to choose 5 random things and you're going to have to answer them. Please, please, please do not, I repeat, do not answer the multiple choice on the last page, on the cover page, and put them there. Write the numbers down as question 1 right at the beginning. I'm not sure who told you, if anybody told you to do that. That is not the correct way to do it. If you got a note for that question, I don't think anybody did eventually, but there was 1 or 2 people that initially got a note because we didn't realize that you had done it at the back. 6 of your scripts were moderated, and my colleague and myself, the colleague who moderated me, both gave 0 to 1 student. Only later to realize that the student had completed them at the back. You will know who you are by virtue of me having written, why did you leave this out? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Only later to scratch that out and then write the amount of marks you got out of I think this was a 10 mark question. Okay, let's get into the more serious things. So they gave you a case study. There's 9 times out of 10 there's going to be a case study. In this case, African sneaker brands. Showing some fancy footwork was the title, and this was about various sneaker brands that have been established in South Africa, Southern Africa, and how they are establishing themselves both locally and in the overseas market. A number of them have got physical stores in South Africa, but then they've got an online presence in the UK or other overseas countries. Now, the reason why we're giving you this case is because all questions will be based on this case. And you need to motivate your questions with issues from this case. So you need to use the case, it's there to assist you, to be able to give you examples. If we're giving you a case about sneakers, there's no sense in giving me an example about a car manufacturer or somebody starting a home business. You base your the examples that you give from the case. You apply to the case. That is why the case is there. Other examples are not really valid. So the first question, question 2.1. You were asked, managers need 3 different types of skills. Identify the most important skills for the founder. I will actually go to the point of reading this question to you. And those are the case studies. Sorry, I'm just paging through the memo. Managers at any level of the organization need 3 types of skills. Identify and explain the skill most important for the founder of Kix, namely Sami Moale. And this was a 5-mark question. I've taken the liberty to insert on the right-hand side the slide I used. So you've got, and the slide has slightly moved over my text, but you've got conceptual, interpersonal, and technical skills are the 3 skills levels that you need. And this is on page 88 and 89 in your textbook. The founder or owner is the most senior person. They are the senior manager in the organization. And therefore, they're going to need the top management skill, which is conceptual. Now, this is a 5-mark question. And I'm just going to tell you how this works, but I'll do it at a 10-mark because there's more 10 marks than 5 marks. I'll read in detail from the memo for you. But basically, if you just gave me conceptual skills that allows the person to look at the big picture, you got 1 to 2 marks. If you said the conceptual skills allow you to look at the big picture, he is the senior manager, he needs to see the big picture. 3, maybe 4 marks. If you said allows you to look at the big picture, he's the most senior manager, he needs to look at the big picture, therefore he will use his conceptual skill to be able to understand what the desires are of the manufacturing section and make sure that the purchasing section is busy buying enough materials so that the manufacturing section can produce what they need to produce. That is relating it, that is integrating it, that is synthesizing it. That's a 5-mark answer. So see how these questions work out. Question 2.2 refers to the various sneaker brands and asks 3 factors that influence the nature of management in Africa. So I'll read this one as well for you. And this was a 10-mark question. The case study mentions various South African-based sneaker brands such as Batu Drip Footwear, Kick Sportswear, Via Footwear. Management within these organizations will be influenced by the environment within which they operate. That environment is a key thing already. With the use of examples, discuss any 3 factors that influence the nature of management in Africa. Now, when we spoke about, and I mentioned this how many times in class, it is essential that you study, when you study the headings so that you understand what you're talking about. This is a classic example of what you seemingly didn't believe when I told you this. So I had the evolution of management in Africa answers, and I had the dimensions of African management thought, which was the one that was asked in the assignment. Very few people answered with the factors. Why? Because you've not studied your headings with the text. So, and even if you have listed 3 of those factors, let me give you, and I'm going to read in full, only for this question, what the memorandum says for every 10-mark question. So they firstly say, theoretical content is 5 marks, 5 out of the 10. 0 to 2 marks. The theory has not been well selected. For example, irrelevant theory has been included. The student has merely written down everything that he could think of, or the theory is largely incorrect. 3 to 4 marks. 4 marks. Relevant theory selected. The theory is correctly described, but contains some minor errors or omissions. So simply writing political factors is not going to give you more than 1 mark. You need to describe it. And for 5 marks, the relevant theory included, the theory is correctly described, no errors. So in this question, they're asking for 3, so you should have given me 3 of them. Correctly describe what that means and what that pertains to. That gives you 5 out of the 10 marks. The second 5 marks, application and analysis. 0 to 2 marks for application analysis. The theory and the context are discussed separately. There is no attempt to relate the theory to the content. No irrelevant facts are included. 3 to 4 marks. There is some attempt to integrate the theory and the context. However, this can be improved. And lastly, for 5 marks, the theory and context are discussed as an integrated whole. For example, in a paragraph, the theory is discussed and consistently related to the context. And the context that they're talking about here is the case study. So guys, I suggest you stop the recording now. Rewind the past minute or so and re-listen to the 5 theory marks, the 5 application marks, so that you have a sense of what we are talking about and what you are expected. My expectation for the exam is that the theory marks are going to count even less and the application marks are going to count even more. Okay, any case, so on page 81 to 83, you'll find this. Let's move on. I think the next one was question 3, management by objectives. Management by objectives on the right-hand side, that is how the slide looked that I used in the class. You'll find this on page 108. You should find that diagram. Firstly, when we're looking at management, management is split into the company and the individual. Management by objectives is a method of working with individuals and setting them plans. In class, my words to you were, I am managed by management by objectives. This process that we have here is gone through with me, and objectives are set for me to regulate my performance, to make sure that my performance is what my performance should be. The moment that you, in your description, those of you that took a shot, and I'm not blaming you for taking a shot, it's always a good thing, take a chance. I don't know the answer, but I'll write something and maybe Carl gives me a couple of marks. The moment you start talking about organizational strategic objectives, medium-term, long-term, medium-term, and short-term goals of the organization, the whole thing falls flat and it's 0 out of 10. Okay, so the biggest problem in this question was that people were confusing this with strategic planning organizational wide. Question 4. Once again, a 10-mark question. This is the one question I'm not very happy with. I thought this was a bit of a sneaky question. This was a difficult question, but yes, it's in the curriculum. Yeah, they wanted to know about team leadership and what theory would be most applicable. The question describes how the one guy has the company in South Africa, but is opening a branch office overseas, and which one will he be able to use of the theory. So there's on page 127, they describe the various team leadership theories. There's, I think, 4 of them in a table. But for this type of work, you need to know all 9 of the theories. And then team leadership is broken down into 4. And you would have had to select virtual team leadership because he wouldn't be able to be there and in South Africa at the same time as the right one. And then describe the 5 marks of theory and the 5 marks for application and analysis, as I previously described. This was a difficult question, I thought. I thought it was a little bit sneaky. But when we set papers, so obviously I didn't set this paper, but when we set papers, we do certain questions that are relatively easy to make it quite easy for people to be able to answer. I would think the previous question, question 3, as well as question 6 are easier questions, but we also put in more difficult questions because those are the questions that students that get distinctions answer correctly. And yes, there was, I think the highest mark in the class was a 73. Most of you are in the mid 40s, however, but that person did answer this correctly. So yeah, those questions come up. But this was the toughest question in the paper. Question 5, the organizational structure. The question ends with, the company will be operating in different locations, right? One of the ways in which we structure organizations is by location. If they're telling you it's the organization will be structured and will be operating in different locations, why would you not choose location structure? That was in page 148, and once again, it's one of those things they could have asked any of them. I told you they will ask one of them. The hint is right there in the question. And then you need to say, they didn't ask you in this case to draw it. As I said, they might ask you to draw. They didn't ask you to draw it. One or two people did draw. I did give a mark or two there for the drawing, just to try to push up marks. But you need to say what the structure is and why it will work for this particular case. That was a 5 marker. Yeah, the last question is question 6. This is another one that I thought would be relatively easy. The benefits of control. It's the last section in the one of the last sections in the chapter on page 163, 164. There's the 5 benefits. Name and explain the 5. Make them applicable to the case, and bang, that was your marks. So that's an overview of the of what was expected and what was required of you. As I said, most of you are in the mid-40s. I understand that many of you will be disappointed, but if you re-listen to what I've just said and you look at your answers, you'll understand why you got the marks that you got. But that is what it is. We now need to look at the way forward. Firstly, the remarks. I spoke about remarks earlier. If you feel I've done you in, please feel free to ask for a remark. Go down to Jana, you go to one of the CROs, they will show you how to apply. You apply. There's a fee to be paid, but as far as I know, the fee is refunded if the mark moves more than a certain amount. Please just keep something in mind. I did try to give additional marks where I can. Your mark may go down. So if you have now got a 52 and you feel, well, I'm actually a 65, and somebody else marks it, because I won't mark it, by the way. Remarks do not come back to me. It's somebody completely different. In this case, it will probably be somebody on a campus, but it may even go off campus. And they mark it, and your 52 becomes a 45. You now have 45. If your 52 becomes a 60, well done, then you get a 60. So yeah. But and just one last thing about the remark, you have 5 days from the date of release, which I believe was yesterday probably, to ask for the remark. If you ask after that, you're not going to get the remark. That ship has sailed. So you need to do it as soon as possible. This is why I wanted to release this recording today, so that you can have a look at your script, look at what I said was required, and see if you believe I've done you in. I would never do you in intentionally, but yeah, things happen. Students feel one way or another. And when students ask me, should I ask for a remark? I always tell them, yes, please ask for a remark. If you feel I have not judged you fairly, please ask for a remark. If it comes back and you get a higher mark, I'll be the first to apologize. I don't mark students down. I want my students to pass. But if I made a mistake, if I in error judged you wrongly, I apologize for that. But most remarks don't come back with a higher mark. Okay, way forward. Please remember, forget what everybody else has told you in the past, because the system has changed for this year. You will get to write the exam. If you got 0 for your assignment, you got 0 for the test, you got 0 for ICE, you still get to write the exam. You would be silly to go write the exam, because it's not going to help you. You can't pass. But you are allowed to write the exam. So the first thing that you need to do is, if you look at the top right-hand side on the slide, I've put down the weighting. So the assignment weighs 25%. The sit-down test weighs 30%. So that's 55%. Your practical examination, the final exam that you're going to sit down, right, is another 35%, which gives you 90%. And then the last 10% is your ICE. I last weekend implored you to please, please, please do your ICE. I've submitted ICE marks. It's out of my hands. That's why I said to you, please, guys, you must do ICE this weekend. On Monday, I submitted ICE. So I've got no control over ICE anymore. If you still feel you've been done in with ICE or anything like that, please go down to the CROs and lay a complaint there, and then we'll see what happens. But I can't help you with ICE anymore. Anyway, so what you need to do is you need to use those weightings to calculate how much your assignment markers contributed and how much your sit-down tests contributes, and then you can work out what your practical examination requirement is. Do you have to get 50, 60, 70%? What do you have to get to pass the subject? If you're not sure, go to the customer relations officers, the CROs. They can help you with the calculation to tell you what you require in the exam. Everything's covered in the exam, right? So it's chapter 1 to I think it's 13. You'll have to check in your module guide. Please remember, your exam is an open book exams. Open books are very difficult. If you think you're going to walk into an open book exam without having studied and you're simply going to look the stuff up and write them down and pass, you've already failed. Don't even go to the exam. The open book exam will ask you a little bit of the theory. As I said, I expect the theory is not going to count as much, and it will be very practical. It'll ask you to apply the theory. That does not mean you can simply state things or make examples. You will have to show the theory. Therefore, you will have to know your work. You will not have time to look it all up. You should know stuff. In terms of what you can take in, you can take your textbook in, you can take printouts in, everything and anything that is not electronic. My advice to you would be to take your textbook in. I would use post-it notes on my textbook to post where various important aspects are in my textbook so that you can quickly look on your post-it note and flip it open to that page. I would also print all the slides out and I would take all the slides in with me. My slides are a summary. It's not everything, but there is a summary. And from the slides, you can then write the theory and then you can write the practical part. I have already uploaded all slides. Although I'm not giving the last section 9 to 13, which you'll probably complete in the next week or so, I have uploaded the stock standard slides. So those will help you. You can ask Dulani if he's going to give you more slides, and you can decide whether you use Dulani's slides or my slides. You'll find that they're very similar. We use the same set of slides, so I don't think there's a real difference. But the slides are handy. You can even, if you want to, and I will advise you to do this, print out all the slides, all 13 chapter slides. On the slides, make notes, because you're allowed to take those notes in, right? So on the slide, make notes and take those in as part of your pack of things that you're allowed to do. Yeah, so mark out your book in your textbook. And yeah, good luck. You're going to need it for this exam. This is going to be one of the roughest exams I've ever seen since I've been at VC. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how you guys manage this. I do believe that the majority of the class can still pass the subject. I don't think there's no hope. It'll take hard work on your side. You will have to study for the open book exam. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay, guys, I assume by now you know my email address. Please feel free to email me. Although I am booked off sick because I'm not supposed to be mobile, I am behind my computer. I do read my emails. You will get an auto reply that says that I'm ill, then you must contact the campus. But I am looking at my emails and I am responding to those that are important, and you guys are important. So just in your subject line, tell me that this is BMAN 5112 or 5111, whatever it is, and then I'll get you and I'll answer you as soon as possible. Okay, guys, good luck. We'll see. I might do another recording before the exam. We'll see how things go. Okay, all the best. Cheers.